Thank you for coming. I appreciate that many of you have got an important day job, so we're going to start now, and I hope that we'll be finished in about an hour. I appreciate that if some of you have to leave early, that's the way it is. We haven't done this with Nigel for, I believe, 3 years. He has a great job. He spends his life traveling from one very challenging landlord to meet another challenging landlord. He travels all over China, India, occasionally down to Australia, and we're about once every 153 weeks he comes to Vietnam. He basically works with developers to get the best out of their land, get the best out of their building. Many landlords are, as you know, in China already up to 60 stories, and he will tell you his list of achievements, which I now believe runs beyond Taipei 101 and various other extremely tall buildings. For those of you that have offices in Hanoi, we're going to do the same thing tomorrow morning at the M Gallery. So if GS or Mapletree, Hong Kong Land, Ascot has buildings or colleagues in Hanoi, please just make a note and inform them that they'll be very welcome to join us at M Gallery at 8 o'clock. I'm told the Hanoians prefer to start a little bit later, but we're going to try and keep to an 8 or an 8:45 start. We obviously follow the market very closely. We like to read the tea leaves, and we like to try and interpret them for many of you. We did our quarterly report yesterday, and if any of you would like to see a copy of that, please just contact one of my colleagues. The last 5 years in commercial real estate in Vietnam, both in Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh, unless you happen to be called Sun Hoa or Diamond Plaza or Mailin Point. My landlord is here today, so thank you ladies for coming. It's been a torrid time. If you've come to the market in the last 3 to 5 years with a new product, whatever the quality, it has taken twice as long to fill, and it's cost you 3 times more to fill it. And the rents that they were able to get in 2007 aren't anything like what you are able to get today. We believe that that is changing, and some of these graphs here will no doubt give you some comfort that maybe the reduction in rent-free periods and these other things that landlords have to give away to attract tenants, we may be seeing the end of that now. I don't think it's suddenly going to tick up. The ADB, the World Bank, the IMF, and the government all believes that GDP, which really drives job creation in Vietnam, is getting better. Yesterday, on the front page of the Saigon Times, the government even suggested that there were 72,000 jobs that we need filling before the end of the year. We produced a million graduates a year, so we need 1 million jobs. Our business is so much to do with job creation and inbound investment. But we've been very, very lucky. Many of you in this room carry the same handphone, the same laptop, the same car that I aspire to. And this is happening in commercial real estate. So another thing that Nigel is going to talk about is the environment that we work in and how that is changing. For many years, we were able to give a slightly substandard property, office, lift waiting time to Vietnamese office users. I believe that's now changed. So when we look at these graphs and we see the office vacancy, we see where rents are going. If you're thinking of doing a new building, or if you are doing a new building, or you have done a new building, I think there's quite a lot to learn, because the gap and the trends in Shanghai or Beijing, London, Tokyo, Taipei, where Nigel works, we need to find out what is relevant to the Vietnam market. What is relevant, what do we need to do? Because many of the tenants that you expect have the same expectation in Vietnam as they do in Tokyo and Taipei. Thank you very much for coming. We'll do the same thing in 3 weeks' time for the residential market, because again, that market's changing. that market is changing probably more dramatically than the office market. So thank you very much indeed. Nigel, it's all yours. How to design and build a successful office development. Nigel Smith, thank you very much.
Thank you. Can you hear me? I did turn it on, I promise. Yeah, you want me to move that? Slate plans. Yeah, we'll switch that. Thank you. I hadn't switched it on, so apologies for that. Well, thank you, Mark, for that wonderful introduction. By way of background, I've been in Asia for 23 years, and my role at CBRE is I oversee the landlord office agency platform, which means I lease buildings. I lease big office buildings. So Mark was kind enough to say some of my experience, Taipei 101, ICC in Hong Kong, 2 IFC in Hong Kong, China World Tower in Beijing, Guangzhou IFC, Ping An IFC, lots of IFCs, everywhere IFCs. We need to do something different. It's interesting, just picking up on what Mark said, because this is a theme that's going to run through my presentation, which is 1,000, is it 1,000? No, 1 million graduates a year. Was that right? 1 million graduates a year. Well, what's interesting is that it's this new generation that's coming through into the office environment that's changing things. So let me tell you about that. Just very quickly before I do, to give you a feeling of our level of experience. Today, the platform that I oversee is about 90 million square foot. And we focus on CBD, grade A type projects. But the reality is we cover everything from A through to D. So I have experience across Asia. My remit is from Japan down to Singapore and across to India, including the Philippines. But I also link in with the global platform at CBRE. So if you have any questions, let me know. Let me just put some perspective around what we're seeing here in Asia. We've seen over the last few years that Asia has outperformed in terms of GDP the rest of the world, which has been fantastic. However, that's changing. The change is that we're seeing now an increase in the GDPs in Europe and America that now is competing with Asia. And whilst Asia, as you can see by the bubble, is still the biggest at 4.2, what we're seeing is that there's now increased competition for capital expenditure from corporates when they look at expanding around the world. Now, saying that, if we look into Asia, we are seeing an increase in sentiment. So the left-hand circle is the Economist index in terms of confidence. And you can see there that pretty much an 80% overall confidence that things are going to improve. And on the right-hand side of the slide, you can start to see some of those industries. And whilst many of the industries are perhaps obvious to you, there are some interesting ones in there. And I think particularly the second one, consumer and retail. We're seeing a big increase in the FMCGs, fast-moving consumer goods, manufacturers wanting to take office space. And they see this as an opportunity in Asia to expand their platform on their terms, without a sole agent. So we're seeing an increase in that. Chanel, Louis Vuitton, all of these retail users are taking more and more office space, so watch out for that. What's also interesting is, near down the bottom, healthcare, pharmaceuticals, growing nearly 100%. There's some big changes going on in industries that you wouldn't normally expect to be growing at this point in time, but they are growing. So overall, in terms of demand, it's looking good for Asia. We believe, our research shows about a 10% increase in demand over the next 12 months, which is extremely positive considering globally we still are in a downturn. We're still in relatively difficult waters. There is still big talk at board level about cost containment and cost reduction for the multinational corporations. What's interesting is there's been a turnaround in terms of the multinationals going for cost containment, with local companies starting to take up that slack and are increasing their occupancy rates. So in China, where I spend a lot of time, a developer would expect 75% of their occupancy to be multinational corporations. That's changed now to 75% local companies. And I see it, I hear it happening here already in Ho Chi Minh and probably in Hanoi. But of course, it's not all good news. There has to be some bad news out there too, just to balance things a little bit. And if there is bad news for Ho Chi Minh, it's not really bad news. It's okay news. It's supply. But you guys have been experiencing this oversupply for many, many years. You know it better than I do. And as Mark said, it does mean more incentives for tenants. But as long as you fill your buildings, that's okay. But in terms of our research, you can see here that Ho Chi Minh is in a moderate risk division. And if you actually look on this graph, where your vacancy rates have been, from 2% to 40%, you are currently sitting below your long-term average. So whilst you have a lot of supply, you're actually below your long-term average, which is good news. So things are starting to converge with increased demand and reduced vacancy rates. So from an Asia perspective, our research, we presented this in Hong Kong just 2 weeks ago. Really, the key sectors to follow at the moment are going to be insurance, TMT, telecommunications, media, and telco. Sorry, that's right, telco. Energy, across the board. Banking sectors in emerging markets, such as Vietnam. They're actually downsizing in Hong Kong and Singapore in some cases. But in emerging markets, they are still growing. And that's an opportunity for you here. Whilst there is this oversupply risk, what that means for an occupier is they're going to start to renegotiate their lease terms. And you can do this very successfully. If you have a building, you do not want to lose a tenant, you give them a longer lease to cover the period of the new building. Likewise, if you have a new building, you know the game, you have to offer those incentives to move them across. But there's opportunities to do something different. And then, as I said, there is this need to balance the growth and the cost from the multinational corporations. You're going to hear it. But there are ways that we can get around this. It's what I call give them what they want on your terms. So they want to reduce cost, okay. But hey, I'm going to give you something that helps that, but come to my building. And I'm going to talk about that later. So let's quickly look at some occupier trends, which I've taken from around the world. This is research from Europe, Europe, Asia, and the Americas. So things are changing, right? Things are changing. It's the million graduates coming through every year in Vietnam that are changing us, me. I'm an old man now. It's the younger generation that are making the changes. And what do they want? They want mobile devices. They want speed. They want efficiency. They want it everywhere. So this change is happening already, and you may have heard this a couple of years ago. Mobile connectivity everywhere. Right? But it's a refinement of these changes that you need to be aware of now. And the refinements are things like enjoyment at work. People want to enjoy themselves at work. They don't want to sit at a desk anymore for 8 hours. And they want flexibility in where they work. If any of you have children, you know your children nowadays will sit on the sofa. They'll be upside down under a table. They'll be in their bedrooms. They work in really strange places. And I still go to the office at 7 a.m. in the morning, and I leave at 7 p.m. at night, and I sit at my desk. But I'm different. And this is what it looks like. It's called corporate branding in the workplace. Go back to what I said about the FMCGs, like Puma. Puma have taken space in Ho Chi Minh, taken a large piece of space, and they're branding it in a very different way. Color is coming through. Cafes are coming through inside the office space. And even at CBRE in Los Angeles, and now in Hong Kong and Singapore, we have what we call the 360-degree alternative workspace solution, which means we have 9 different desk options for you to use when you come in. So I could sit here for a bit, I could sit over there, I could have my legs upside down. I can choose. Stylish and colorful is a key message today for you. This is what your tenants want. And whilst you cannot change their office space, you can change your common areas. You can change the outside look of your building. You can change the driveway that comes to your building. There's many things you can do to change to meet these requirements. Give them what they want on your terms. And that's the trick here that we need to achieve to improve rentals and occupancy. So let me give you an example. I love this one. It's called, some of you Westerners will certainly know it as the walkie-talkie. Right? It's 20 Fenchurch Street, right in the middle of the City of London. It's been an extremely successful building for several reasons, but I want to highlight 2 today. The first reason is the sky garden on the top, and you can see in the bottom left-hand corner an artist impression. It's not yet finished, it will be soon. It has 3 floors on the top of the building, inside. It's an inside garden. I know we all like to be outside. There is an area outside, but primarily you have this facility that offers not just one coffee shop, one restaurant, but multiple. So think about your lift lobby. You have a bank, maybe. Why? You should have coffee shops, restaurants. You want to create an atmosphere that draws people into your building. This is the change. And the second change is very simply this 1.8, which even for London as a standard is unusual. What we're seeing is that occupancy rates are increasing, or the other way around, you're seeing that the area per person is decreasing. The standard used to be 10, right? 10 square meters per person. This was developed at 8, and it leased up faster than any other competitor around it. Why is that? Very simply, you're helping the tenant reduce their floor space. You're giving them what they want on your terms. So by reducing the floor area, yes, they take less space, but you get a good tenant. Maybe they pay a higher rental for that. So it's very interesting how they branded this building in a way that attracted tenants that wanted this. So now let's get into the design features. And whether you have an existing building or a new building, it's going to be the same. There are useful pieces of information that you can take away today. So every year, CBRE in Europe conducts a survey, from our occupiers. We ask them, what do you want? How do you rate a building? What are your key drivers to go to a building? And this is their top 10. Always there's going to be location, cost, lease flexibility. We know that. That's the given. Forget that. What I want to talk to you today about is three perhaps critical points: is building profile, design, and also the arrival experience. And that's the new one. Number 7 is really new. This has happened literally within it's really taken off within the last 6 to 9 months. It's that recent. And I'm going to tell you what about it. First of all, building profile. I love this screenshot of ICC. If any of you have been to Hong Kong, you will know it. It's a famous, iconic tower, the 7th tallest in the world. And the lighting system by the Japanese designer is incredible, no question. And as you can see, it's now part of a tourist attraction. So when I was here in 2011, I would have talked about the importance of having a famous architect. And yes, KPF, Korn, Pedersen, Fox from New York, was the architect. They are famous. But now that's not important. Because so many of you here in Vietnam and Ho Chi Minh are using famous architects. So we have to do something different. And there are really 2 things that you can do differently. One is lighting. I was with a developer yesterday who are creating a lighting system that looks like the logo on their business card. So you can do really interesting things. And what does that do? It brands your building. FMCGs. You are now an FMCG. Think like an FMCG. You are Chanel, Louis Vuitton. You choose. In fact, I was with one designer, and I like this. It's a good way to think about your building. He always would say, if you were a car, what would your building be? Is it a Bentley or a Land Rover? You can choose. It's a way to think about it. So the profile of your building is important, and whatever you can do to attract tenants in is helpful. But secondly is art. Not just the art itself, but the exhibition of the art. Think about this. Most tenants nowadays have a corporate social responsibility program. Many of you companies will have a CSR program. If you can try and help your tenants improve their CSR, for example, by throwing out, paying for an exhibition of a local artist, that helps the neighborhood. It helps promote the company, and it helps promote your building. So I'm not just talking about art itself, I'm talking about the ways to exhibit art and to then cross-fertilize with your occupiers. They want to do charitable work. They want to help the neighborhood. So I was standing in another building yesterday, and I looked out at all the small shop houses, and I said, this is your neighborhood. These are the people you need to engage and build their support around you. It's the same for an office tower. You need to engage with the office tenants through art and exhibition space. What can I say about office design? Your buildings here, honestly, are Asia and in some cases world class. You know how to design a building. You have differences. Ceiling height. In Asia, we tend to do higher than Ho Chi Minh. We're at 2.8, 2.9, 3 meters. And they seem to be lower here, but that's okay. But what I want to explain to you more about is the experience. Remember, arrival experience, but the arrival experience goes through into the building in terms of the office design. Mark was talking about lift wait times. Yeah, lift wait times, 28 seconds, 27, 23, 35, right? Boring. Don't talk about lift wait times anymore. It will not attract a tenant because it's already assumed that you've got a good lift wait time. A bit like a suspended ceiling. You've got a suspended ceiling, right? No one asked the question, right? What they want is the experience of walking into your lobby, waiting for the lift. Waiting for the lift. We know this is a problem. It's a problem in Hong Kong. It's a problem in 2 IFC in Hong Kong, one of the best buildings in the world. It's a problem. Don't worry about having lift queues. Try not to have lift queues. What I'm saying is, think about what you can do about it. I'll give you an example. In the Empire State Building in New York City, the area that the tourists wait for, the observation deck on the top floor, is managed by the Walt Disney Company. I don't know whether you know that. They manage that area. And they have people going up and down and dancing and doing things and balloons. Who would think about creating an experience that made time get shorter? So what are you doing about the tenants who are waiting, getting frustrated and hot in your lift lobbies? What can you do about making that a more pleasant experience? And I think that can be done with an existing building, and I think it can be done with a new building. You need to think about the experience, and that even goes into the lift. I see in a lot of buildings here in Ho Chi Minh advertising inside the lifts. That's okay. That's okay. But have you thought about what you're advertising? Have you thought about the interest of that advertising to one of your tenants? Have you thought about helping your tenants with some interesting information about their daily life? What about, for example, a restaurant that they can get a discount at? What are you doing inside the lift whilst people are waiting? That is interesting, and that changes the experience of a tenant. Then they stop complaining. But more importantly, you've created your own neighborhood of people who want to be in your building. So I just wanted to give you that experience in terms of the design of office space. How you lay out your office lobby downstairs or inside the lift car itself. Think about what you can do to help your tenants, and then you tell them about it. This is the most important slide of my presentation, I believe. Because I talked about multiple restaurant opportunities earlier, and it's true. They don't want one coffee shop. My first question coming here to Bill was, hey, what's the best local coffee shop? You didn't say Starbucks, did you? Good man. No, you didn't. Why does everybody go to Starbucks? I get Starbucks. They're a very popular brand. But why not have Starbucks and somebody else? Offer something different. It's the same with restaurants. You guys have been doing it better for years with multiple restaurant opportunities. I like that, but now think small, not big. Okay, I know from Hong Kong, the big dim sum restaurant has to be big. I get that. But is that what your occupier wants? Not necessarily. Maybe they want a different experience. Maybe they want soft seating. Hey, look, we've got tables. We've got chairs at the back. Think about how you chose where you were going to sit today when you came in. Some of you had no choice. You're waiting at the back. Some of you had a choice. What choices are you giving to your tenants? And yeah, this word trendy, the word trendy, it's a difficult one. Is it color, like I said earlier? Or is it loud music? Probably not. How about this? The concept I want to leave you with today, which I have only just started talking about within the last probably 4 to 6 weeks, is what I'm calling the shopping center experience inside your office space. I'm not talking about a shopping center, but I'm thinking about the experience. What do I get when I go to a shopping center? I have food and beverage. I have cafes. I have facilities. I have events, exhibitions. So start to think about how you can put color into your building through the shopping center experience. I think it's a concept that needs refinement, but actually it has something to it. It's that Walt Disney management at the Empire State Building in New York. It's the same thing. And remember that it's not the older generation that you're trying to help. We're used to waiting in a lift with nothing to do. It's the younger generation. So give them that experience. This is an example that we love to use. CBRE have been working on it for the last 4 or 5 years, and we've put 2 amazing tenants in there. One of which was L'Oreal, who took a whole tower. It's been an extremely successful development in the northwestern side of New York, and it links into the old railway, above-ground railway line that is now a walking experience, if you know New York. But I've just highlighted a couple of things on this slide which I feel are important. Things you need to remember. You know, in particular, 14 acres of open space, including areas to hold exhibitions and events. They've been doing it, it works. Health clubs, spas, retail destination, entertainment spaces that can be used by tenants. So these are the things that I'm gathering from my global experience that I'm trying to share with you and our team at CBRE here in Ho Chi Minh, so they can then take that forward with you on the ground when you're looking at your plans. But this is an extremely good example where L'Oreal and FMCG took this space that is outside of the downtown location. And yeah, sure, I bet cost was a factor. Cost is always a factor. But in an oversupplied market, it's not about the cost. It's about the experience. So just finally, in terms of the sections, I'm just going to very quickly run through some examples of marketing and ideas. The first one I always enjoy to give is Heron Tower in London. They researched the market and they realized that there was an opportunity to create this open space. And I've seen this here in Ho Chi Minh, so you guys are doing it. But they worked out that their target audience, which was American law firms, wanted 30,000 square foot, 3,000 square meters. But this building only had 1,000 square meter floor plates. So they created this void that covered the 3 floor plates that an American law firm may want. And it's been extremely successful. However, it's probably better known for having the largest seawater fish tank in Europe in its lobby, would you believe? Entertainment, yes. Usefulness, probably not so much. But I think this village concept that they created here is unique. And that's what you're looking for. You're trying to research something that's unique. This is probably the best example I can think of to try and find uniqueness in a building that CBRE, we were only marketing the middle 18 floors. 88 stories, 4 owners, 8 real estate agents, and I'm marketing the middle 18 floors. Talk about competition, I had it. The building, 2 IFC, you can see it here, 160,000 square meters. It was the equivalent of 8 years office supply in one building at one time. We had some problems. Oh, and by the way, it was 2003, and we had SARS in Hong Kong. If anybody even remember that. So we had to look at what was unique about this floor plate. And, you know, when you look at the floor plate, it looks standard. But the reality was, we found out that it was the only floor plate that actually had a 3-way entrance, which means we could give 1, 2, 3 exclusive office entrances. Remember what I said earlier, arrival experience. I was doing this in 2003. I just did not know the words for it. So the central 18 floors of 2 IFC were the only ones with this system. It was unique. You too have to find something that's unique. Maybe it is just a sofa in your lobby that's a piece of art. Maybe it's a fish tank. Maybe it's the office design. But there is always something. But what you must do, and you do here, is bring it to the local market. Like I said earlier, your floor to ceiling heights tend to be lower here. That's okay. They are higher around the world, but they're higher because the floor plates are bigger. In London, the average floor to ceiling height is 2.6 meters. But you need to find a connection with the local market. And this is the example that I worked on. And the example I give you is Taipei 101, which I felt had a great deal of negativity in this picture. It's a beautiful picture. But when you think about that this is on an earthquake zone, there's a fault line here. Literally just runs here. It's in a typhoon belt. And the third problem I found was that the local Taiwanese people don't like tall buildings. And I just won the mandate to lease this thing. I'm like, oh my goodness. So what I did was, to try and localize it, we created a new icon. Not very sophisticated, but powerful. You need to think about a way to present and brand your office building that the local people can understand. It's not a language difference, it's a branding difference. Why is there a difference between Chanel and Coach as 2 brands? You ladies will know. I sort of know. My wife has many handbags. So what we're trying to create is something that is recognizable, that people understand is your brand, and what experience they're going to get from being in your building, and ultimately how they're going to make more money. I cannot stress enough that buildings are places where we make money. What are you doing about helping your occupier make money? Now I can tell you, you're already doing it. You're creating comfortable work environments. You've got air conditioning systems. You've got cafes, at least nearby. You've got hotels. You have it here, but now you need to go down to the fine print and create something that's slightly different. And once you find that, you need to be visible. A second key message today for you is visibility in terms of your marketing. You're going to not like me for this, I'm afraid, but times have changed. You have to be visible from a marketing perspective. You cannot wait for the tenants just to come to you anymore. There's too much supply. But more importantly, if there was good demand, don't you want the better tenants who pay the better rental, who pay the rental? So when you find what you're talking about, here in English it is, we create this global destination inspiring business. I worked with a team, this is Guomao in Beijing, Peking, and we had some beautiful photography, we had intranet sites, we did advertising, but you create this atmosphere. You don't have to do it globally, but you need to do it locally, and maybe just in your neighborhood. So you need to start thinking about what brand are you presenting to your tenants that will make them think differently. Because the way that we market buildings in the rest of the world is changing. In London, they do not even produce a brochure. They have a flyer. There's no need for it. No one wants a brochure. No one wants paper anymore. But, hey, paper's still good. And it works here. It works in Hong Kong. We still do the big brochure in Hong Kong. But just think about the new style of marketing, digital, social media, gossip, Weibo, all right, the chat sites. What's going on? That's what the younger generation want to hear. Because what you want is the young person going to the boss to say, hey, I would really like to be in that building. That's cool, trendy. Okay? It's just a way to think about it. And look, if that means advertising, it means advertising. I love this advertisement by HSBC. I may have said it in 2011 when I was last here, but it still amazes me. And what amazes me is that 20 years ago, the banks, like HSBC, never advertised. And now, if you go on any airline in any airport, you will walk down a footbridge to the plane with an HSBC sign on it, or an ICBC sign on it, or in Singapore, DBS, or whatever. It's amazing. So the younger generation understand mobility in terms of the advertising. Go back to the lift experience. Put in your advertising for shampoo, that's okay. But in between that, give them something that they want to know about. That's also advertising. But it's a way that you can get out there to attract the younger generation to come in. And the example I'm going to give you is ICC, International Commerce Center Hong Kong, and many people know it. It's a great iconic tower. Huge facilities, retail, hotels, service departments. But this is what it was about. It was about two things. First of all, it was about this green scarf. In all the advertising, there was a green scarf. Why? No particular reason, just a green scarf. The designer came up with the idea that obviously the green matched the logo. Okay, get that. That a silk scarf in Hong Kong was appropriate. Right? Makes sense. And then the green color was also a positive color. But the second thing was, obviously, I can see. I can see. And then you say, I can see perspective. I can see it from central Hong Kong. And look, whilst they spend a lot of money, actually, to be honest, I'm surprised it's so low, but it's still a lot of money. But the results speak for themselves. Now, were they lucky because the market was going up? The banks were expanding? Yes, maybe. Sure. But it's not all about luck. My mother always used to say to me, you make your own luck by working hard. And I put that back to you as the Ho Chi Minh developer community, is what are we doing to create this environment that makes our buildings more successful as an industry? Because whilst we are in competition with each other, we're also a group of specialists who want to raise the bar. So, when I look back for the 3 times I presented to this type of group in 2010, 11, and now 14, I look back at my presentations and I wanted to find what I'd said and look for the changes. And what's interesting to me is that in 2010 it was all about the global financial crisis. It was all about the economics. It was all about the environment. But that changed a year, 2 years later, when we started talking about the employee. And that was the balance, the space, the creativity. And I had pictures of people sitting out in parks, because that was the space that was available. But now it's changed one more time to the new, what I call the new triple bottom line. And really, it's about this. It's the arrival experience. What emotion are you putting into your arrival experience? Your shopping center concept. How can you create an environment that will attract the tenants in, that brands you differently? Sometimes through the outdoor lighting, the soft sofa in the lobby, the coffee shops, engaging the environment or neighborhood around you, local artists. How can we create more emotion? Because at the end of the day, that emotion will lead to efficiency and effectiveness, which is the way that 1 million graduates every year think about it. I've talked for too long, so I'm going to finish there, but I hope somehow that you've got some key messages, some ideas at least for you to think about. I'm always here on a quarterly basis, if Mr. Townsend will bring me out on a more regular basis. But I'm always at the end of an email, if anybody has any questions. But at the end of the day, I would suggest that you please go through Greg Ohan, my colleague here who's based in Ho Chi Minh and covers Hanoi. And he can help you on the ground, but he will link in with me. Because CBRE, we're not just Ho Chi Minh. We are global, and we're very happy to help. Thank you.